welcome. We are so excited to have Cathy Ford here to talk about women on gaming, and she has a podcast called Our Turn, and it's a podcast by women for everyone. And a special thanks goes out to Paul here from A Geeks World Tour 2020. And Paul, do you want to do a quick little introduction, talk about A Geeks World Tour?
Oh, sure.
All right.
Hi guys. A Geek World Tour 2020 is basically, the purpose of it is to explore our multi-dimensions and universes of being a geek. And I don't know what that is. I bet you don't know either, so we're coming up with lectures and resources and interesting topics that we can all share and participate in. And this week's topic is Our Turn, Women on Gaming. And I'd like to introduce Cathy Ford, a host, producer, guild master, and Cathy is a happily married wife, puppy mama, and technical trainer in Antelope, California. She enjoys walking her dogs, reading, watching political, sci-fi, fantasy, superhero, and documentary TV shows and movies. Even more than that, she enjoys playing and teaching board, card, and role-playing games with friends and family members. Her favorite game mechanics are pick up and deliver, legacy, and storytelling. She is currently working on and blogging about her 52 game challenge project. We'll talk about that. Her personal blog is at cathysbrain.blogspot.com, and Cathy also enjoys working, teaching, learning, and playing on computers and the internet. And you can find Cathy on Twitter at Cathy's Brain, okay, and Pinterest, and also at boardgamegeek.com. And currently, Cathy manages the Board Game Geek Guild for the show, guild number 2600. Cathy, go for it.
Thank you, Paul, and welcome everybody. So, as Paul said, my name is Cathy Ford, and I am a founding member of Our Turn, Women on Gaming. And with me here today is my husband, Mark. Mark is also involved with the show. He is a show contributor. He does segments for the show, and he's also an editor and producer for the show. And Mark and I have been married for 16 years. We've been happily married all that time. And we have two beautiful dogs. Those are our babies. Shasta on the right there is, she's 10, and Sadie on the left is 2. And you will find that age discrepancies like that run in my family. When I'm not playing games and spending time with my husband and dogs, I am taking care of this little beauty. This is my niece, Walker Lynn, and she's 21 months old and just the happiest little thing I've ever seen. And I also spend quite a bit of time with these lovely 3 ladies. These are my co-hosts and collaborators on the podcast. Sarah Reed is a game designer, and she's also co-hosts the show with me, and she's one of our founding members. And then Nicole Martin is my niece, and she's actually Walker Lynn's big sister, and there's 18 years between the two of them. And she contributes segments and is also a founding member. She helped with the planning of all of this. Nicole is 19 right now. And the third member of our founding group is Ella Dowell. And Ella works behind the scenes on the podcast. She does graphic design, web design, and editing, and has helped us with editing the podcast. And she's also a founding member, so she helped us with putting the whole thing together and planning all that. So, let me tell you a little bit about Our Turn, Women on Gaming. This is our logo, and I get asked about our logo, so I thought I would explain it a little bit. As you can see, the circle and the T for the Our Turn is actually a women's emblem, a symbol for female. And then the die up there is a 20-sided die. It's used in a lot of role-playing games in particular. And the reason why it's set for 6 is because we initially had 6 members when we formed this. 2 of our members had some fantastically wonderful things happen in their life, but when those things happened, they had to step away from the show. They're still big fans of the show, and they still support everything we're doing. They just aren't able to participate in it right now. So, all of this got started because I love listening to podcasts. I absolutely adore listening to gaming podcasts, self-help podcasts, and anything that talks about encouraging women to be, to put themselves out there more, to be more bold and courageous. So I love all of those types of podcasts. These are 4 of my favorite game-related podcasts: the Dice Tower, Low Player Count, NPC Cast, and Onboard Games. I love listening to these, but the one thing that I noticed about these games is that they're all led by men, all of them. And that's not to denigrate my male podcasting brethren. They do a great job, but the women's voice wasn't being heard a lot. They do have some female contributors on their shows, and those ladies are doing a fantastic job. But there were no podcasts that I could find that were led by women. And so while I encourage people, while I encourage people to listen to these shows and patronize these shows, again, I was looking for something that sounded and looked a little bit more like me. So I went to Board Game Geek. Board Game Geek is an online database of all the board games. If you have ever seen or heard of any kind of a board game, it's listed on Board Game Geek. There's a page about it on Board Game Geek. It is a massive site. They also have forums where people can talk about the different games, and that's where our guild is listed as well, so that people can come in and talk to us about our podcast. So I went to their list of podcasts, and I know you can't read this, but there are 215 board game related podcasts listed on Board Game Geek. Ours is right here. There's a lot of noise out there. Now, not all 215 of these podcasts are still going. Some have done what's called pod fading. They've petered out. People got busy and couldn't keep them going, or things like that. But a lot of these are still going, and but it is a little overwhelming. So, because I couldn't tell if any of those were female run podcasts without downloading and listening to all 215 of them, I went back to Board Game Geek and I went into the women's forum and did a search for podcast in the women's forum. And that led me to a thread where somebody asked, are there any podcasts that are run by women? And the answers that person was getting back was no. In fact, somebody posted a list of all the podcasts they'd found that had women contributors or women co-hosts, but none that was run exclusively by and for women. And so I decided to reach out to my friends. I used Facebook Messenger and contacted all of my female gaming friends and said, who would like to do a female-centric board game-related podcast with me? And I got 5 takers. And the 3 ladies I showed you earlier were 3 of those 5. And then we also had 2 others, Maida and Melissa, who joined us as well. And so we got together and we wanted to come up with what was important to us about this podcast, what was it going to represent, what was it going to mean. And so we decided to do the good old-fashioned mission, vision, and values statement so that we were all pulling in the same direction. So the mission for our turn, Women on Gaming podcast, is we are a group of women who are pulling out the chairs around the table and inviting everyone to sit down and join the game and the conversation. Our vision is that we are a positive, inclusive, and active voice in the gaming industry and the gaming community at large. We want to help influence the gaming industry so that it becomes more inclusive and representative of women as a whole population. And then our values are community, fair play, good sportsmanship, friendly competition, inclusivity and diversity, compassion and caring. Now you may chuckle a little bit at the diversity one that we've got there because we're a group of white women. But we do have some diversity even in that group because Nicole is 19 and I'm 45 and we've got a wide age range of people in between all that. Maida and Melissa are married to each other. Mark and I are married to each other. And then we have one other married couple. Sarah is a game designer. She's the only one of us that's a game designer. Ella is a world traveler, and so she's got that perspective. So we do have some diversity, but we're inviting more in. We've put out a call to our listeners to become contributors on the show. And we want to hear all kinds of viewpoints and from all kinds of people. And so we've opened up our show to that as well. So why is our turn, Women on Gaming, even necessary? Well, there's a few things that women as geeks encounter on a fairly regular basis. This cartoon is a good illustration. Guy's wearing a Green Lantern t-shirt. The other guy says, "Cool shirt, dude." Same situation, except it's a girl wearing the Green Lantern t-shirt. And all of a sudden, she's getting grilled about what's her knowledge of Green Lantern. Does she know? Can she name any of the Green Lanterns? Does she know the Green Lantern Oath? Can she name all of the Lantern Corps? You know, these are things that don't usually happen to guys. Also, too, a couple of years ago, there was Gamergate. A female journalist posted her opinion about what she'd found about how women are represented in the video game industry. And she called out video game producers on the poor way that women were represented and treated in video games. And there was a huge storm in social media over this. A lot of people calling this poor woman all kinds of horrible, nasty names, saying horrible, nasty things about her. She even got death threats just because she posted her opinion about how women are treated in video games. It was really a sad situation. I would not have wanted to go through that if I were her, and it was painful for me to even watch it happen. But at the time, I was sitting there thinking, what can I do? What can I do about it? Then I also came across this sign that says, "Cosplay is not consent. Please keep your hands to yourself if you would like to take a picture with or of another New York Comic Con fan. Always ask first and respect that person's right to say no. When at New York Comic Con, be respectful, be nice, be cool, and be kind to each other." Now, you may not know what cosplay is. This is cosplay. Showing up at a convention dressed as your favorite superhero or your favorite character from a movie. Women should be able to feel comfortable dressing up as their heroes and going to a convention and not having to worry about being grabbed or groped or demeaned for their choice of showing up and showing their enthusiasm for their favorite things. Now, admittedly, these are some of the tamer pictures of cosplay. Sometimes women show up in kind of risque costumes, but that's their right, and they have a right not to be manhandled when they're at an event. This is my niece Nicole doing cosplay. She is dressed up as a character from The Nightmare Before Christmas. And it just really breaks my heart that Nicole can't do this without the need for signs like this. That it's not just common sense that when you see someone that's dressed up that you just treat them with respect. Another incident that we came across was a discussion on Facebook regarding how women are portrayed in comic books as superheroes. So somebody did this study, line pencil drawing here, of two poses of the same superhero. In one, she is drawn in unrealistic proportions. She is put in a vulnerable, twisted sort of position. Even her boots are highly impractical for the kind of work that she's going to be doing. And this kind of image for most women is not attainable. It's just not something that any of us have any hope of ever even becoming. The one on the right is more realistic. Yes, she's still got feminine curves, but they're in proportion to her body. You can tell she's definitely female, but she's in a strong position. She looks like she's ready to fly off into action. And her clothing is appropriate to it. And so these are the kind of discussions that as a podcast we're hoping to facilitate and we're actively working on facilitating. One of our recent episodes was called Just Say No to Chainmail Bikinis, because we see too often in fantasy settings, fantasy games, we see women in scantily clad armor that wouldn't protect you in battle. And we see men outfitted in plate armor. And women are in these little chainmail bikinis because they look sexy, but that's not at all practical. And so we had a pretty good discussion on that in that episode. This is Jessica Rabbit, and she's famous for saying, "I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way." And does anybody remember when Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out? What year?
92.
No. 1988.
Oh.
Whoa.
I was still in high school when this movie came out. I was a junior in high school when this movie came out. And that phrase from Jessica Rabbit really stuck with me, because that was when I started realizing that how women are portrayed in cartoons and comic books. And later on I realized games, video games, board games even, it was a thing, it was a concern. And so it has been on my consciousness for 28 years. I just didn't know what to do about it. Then about a year and a half ago, I read this book, Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead by Sheryl Sandberg. And Sheryl Sandberg is the Chief Operating Officer of Facebook. So she has worked her way up in a tech-heavy industry to be basically the second from the top at Facebook. And one of the stories that she tells in her book is of going to a meeting in a boardroom, and she went and sat down at the table, and some other younger women came in, and they went and sat against the wall. Even when she invited them to come sit at the table, they were like, "No, I'm fine, I'll just sit back here." But when you sit back against the wall, what you have to say, what you think, isn't listened to because you're back against the wall. You're not sitting up to the table, you're not leaning into the conversation, you're not taking part. And her example was that too many women are choosing to sit along the wall rather than to join the conversation at the table. Well, while she's talking about boardrooms and boardroom tables, we're talking about gaming tables. And anybody who has watched the show would know that this is my absolute favorite board game. It's called Firefly. And it is a fun game. It's a complicated game, as you can see with all the bits and pieces there. But we want women to sit down and join the game, no matter what the game is. It doesn't have to be a high strategy game that takes 8 to 12 hours to play. And there are games like that. It can be filler games. It can be medium weight games. It can be anything. Just sit down at the table and join the conversation. And don't be afraid just because there's a bunch of guys there. Most of the time, they're really decent guys. And if you do get a guy who's rude, especially to any women that are there, most of the time the other guys will come down on him like a ton of rocks, if the women don't take care of it first. So we aren't all frail, delicate flowers. A lot of us will stand up for ourselves, but it's nice to also have the backup from the guys there too. So, why is Our Turn Women on Gaming necessary? It's necessary so that women like this, my 3 colleagues, can do the things that they have a passion for. Sarah loves designing games, and she also builds Lego cities with her husband. She shouldn't be shy about doing any of those things. That should be something that she enjoys putting out there as her passion. Nicole loves video games and role-playing games, and she shouldn't have to be shy about sitting down at the table and saying, "Deal me in." And Ella loves playing board games online. She loves role-playing games, and she loves traveling the world, oftentimes by herself. And she shouldn't be shy about being able to do that. And so that's that's the reason we came together and created Our Turn Women on Gaming. We did it so that these women will be able to do their cosplay, to show their passion for their favorite characters. And we did it so that signs like this are no longer necessary, so that everybody can just show up and have a good time and not have to worry about being accosted at a gaming or comic book convention. And mostly, we did it so that future generations can sit down at the table with confidence and join the conversation and say, "Deal me in." So, thank you. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, do you have a recommendation for a good starter game? I like games, but I find myself getting really intimidated by like lots of pieces and lots of rules, and
Sure.
I don't remember how to do stuff. And,
Sure.
But I do like the fantasy aspect, and I want to get more of my friends involved with it. So, yeah, any recommendations?
Yes, we actually brought one today that I would recommend. This is my friend Sarah's game called Project Dreamscape. In this game, you are taking part in a scientific experiment about dreaming, and you're trying to harness the power of dreams. And so it's got that good fantasy kind of aspect in that you're imagining that you're doing this. It is simply a card game. There's not a million little pieces. It takes maybe 5 minutes to learn and about 15 minutes to play. Mark and I were playing a game earlier today called OMYTAMA. It's a 2-player game. It is similar in nature to chess, but with kind of a twist. You have 5 pieces on the board on your side and 5 pieces on the other side, and you each get dealt 5 cards. You each get dealt 2 cards, and then there's a card in the middle. And these cards dictate how you can move your pieces. And when you use a card, you take it and you put it in the middle, and you take the card from the middle. And so it's these 5 cards circulating throughout the game. And the object of the game is to capture either your other opponent's master, which is the biggest piece, or to get your master to your opponent's master's seat. And again, it's a game that takes maybe 5 minutes to learn, but similarly to chess, you won't ever master it because there's just so much variation. There's another game that I take to work to play with my coworkers who are not gamers. It's called Roll For It. And it's a dice game. You each get about 6 dice, you roll, and you're trying to match recipes on these cards that are in the middle of the table. Very easy. Zombie dice is another one, since we're coming up on Halloween here. Zombie dice comes in a wooden tube, a cardboard tube, and it has a bunch of polyhedral dice inside that have footprints, shotgun blasts, and brains on them. And you are the zombie. You're playing the zombie. The dice are the survivors that you're chasing after. And so you roll the dice, and if you get any brains, you get to keep those. and then you pull out some more dice. You're rolling 3 dice at a time. You pull out some more dice until you've got 3, and you roll them again. Now, you also get to keep any that have shotgun blasts on them because you just got shot. If you get 3 shotgun blasts, you lose all the brains you've collected. If you decide to stop before you get 3 shotgun blasts, you get to score the brains that you've collected. First person to get to 13 wins. So it's not even, play for forever kind of game. You're playing to 13. And the number of players it can accommodate, on the box it says 1 to 99. So, and I have played it with 10 or 15 people before, and it's a lot of fun. So, those are the ones that come to mind right now. I actually have several in my card, so I could run out and get those and show those to you as well. I'd be happy to do that. Any other questions?
When's your podcast?
We try and put it out every 2 weeks. Sometimes life gets in the way and it takes a little bit longer. But we try and put it out about every 2 weeks. We are actually going to be dropping 2 at the end, hopefully at the end of next week.
How many podcasts have you got is up there?
We have 10 out so far. 11 and 12 are in post-production right now. And we just recorded number 13, so it's in post-production as well. And then we record every 2 weeks.
And have you seen any changes out there? You've been to several conventions already.
Mm-hmm.
And so has there been changes in the attitude, the perspective, the feel of...
Not yet, but we are starting to address a lot of the issues that brought us to the point of starting the podcast. Any big changes take time, and we're willing to put in the effort and the work to get us there. But we've been very much welcomed into the gaming community. I was worried that when we launched this, we were basically going to be told to sit down and shut up, and that didn't happen. That was a real concern. But we have lots of male fans. We have lots of female fans. In fact, a lot of times we get posts on the Board Game Geek Guild or on our Facebook page of people saying, "Oh my gosh, I am so glad you're doing this. I am so glad I found this podcast, and I can't wait to catch up on your other episodes." So that's been really encouraging to us and helps keep us going when we get messages like that.
Is there any other podcast just like yours or close to like yours in the East Coast?
On the East Coast, I don't know. I do know there is one other podcast that's hosted by women, and they launched about 2 weeks before we did, so we were all in the planning stages at the same time. And that podcast is called Board Game Blitz, and it's run by 3 ladies. And their podcast is very different from ours, but it's board game related. Their format is very different from ours. In fact, a few weeks ago, one of the podcast hosts of Board Game Blitz said, "We don't do interviews on our show, but these 2 shows do," and they named our show and another one called Ding and Dent, which is done by a couple of guys, and that's a fun one too. But the Board Game Blitz crew had seen a post from Stephen Bonacore of Stronghold Games saying, "Hey, I'm looking for podcasts to go on. My only condition is that you have 10 episodes in the can and you talk about board games." And so I told him, I said, "We've got 8 in the can right now, but we've got 9 and 10 are in post-production. Is that close enough?" And he goes, "Sure." And so he's going to actually be episode number 11, and his interview will be dropping here real soon.
We can't wait. We can't wait.
I can't either. He was a fun interview to do.
Now, there was in your presentation, there was a person that was harassed or handled very roughly. Are you able to contact her or maybe get a...
I would like to try to. At some point, we've just been concerned with getting the show up and running.
Right.
But at some point, I would like to contact her about doing an interview about Gamergate.
And you're open for that?
Absolutely.
opportunity.
Absolutely.
And
One of the things I'd actually like to try and do in 2017, if I can swing it, is get Sheryl Sandberg on and have her talk about leaning in the gaming community. So,
excellent. And of course, other organizations and that would be interested in this important topic that you're opening up here. It's a great field to get into. It's blooming, actually, as I see it. And if there's any other, what would be, as a last message for would-be gamers, any suggestions, any comments as good advice for being out there, for young ladies?
oh, for young ladies. Don't let a room full of guys scare you. I have walked into game stores and seen rooms full of men, and they all stop talking and look up at you like, what are you doing here? And you know what? I just walk right in and go about my business. And if I'm there to play a game, I'll find something that's getting started, I'll sit down and start playing. You just have to be bold. And don't let the differences scare you. It's easy to let the differences scare people, but you have to push past it. Great change was never made from your comfort zone. And so you need to get out of your comfort zone and adventure a little bit. And sometimes the adventuring is done around the tabletop.
Well, thank you for your time and consideration, Cathy.
Thank you, Paul.